Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to Vantage Points. I'm Hisham al-Maligi. Today I have the honor and pleasure to host Dr. Mohamed Fawzi of Al-Azhar University and currently in Brooklyn to talk about receiving this Ramadan in the age of corona virus. And with us, Brother Galal Fadl, he will help us with the questions that we will receive from the audience. His close friend and colleague from Staten Island, where I am. Dr. Muhammad, I would like to welcome you. And please, before you start, give us a little bit about yourself and your position in Al Azhar, and just introduce yourself to the people so they get to know you. Please go
Thank
ahead.
you very much. It is my pleasure to be with you today. I'm currently an assistant professor of Islamic jurisprudence at Al-Azhar University, located in Cairo. I was also working until last summer as the supervisor of the Committee for Fatwa in Al-Azhar Global Universal Global Center. And I also a member of Al-Azhar Translation Center and a member of the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs in Cairo. My interest include the modern human issues, human rights, women's rights in Islam, and the higher objectives of Islamic Sharia, among others.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So now with Ramadan, inshallah, starting this coming Friday, Ramadan Kareem and Mubarak on everyone. And with the order to stay home because of this pandemic that we're in, the governor of New York and other governors ordered a stay-at-home order until May 15, and some until June 10th, and some until June 30th. So most likely, Ramadan for most of us will be at home. How do we receive Ramadan this year to maximize the benefit and minimize the feeling of isolation, especially that we are always at the mosque in Ramadan, whether it's for iftar or taraweeh or the other prayers, Fajr and Isha, and the gathering in Ramadan is very important for us Muslims. So, how do we do it this year? And please take the floor and give us a little bit a lecture or a khatira, and then we will take the question and answer from the audience.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Muslim sisters and brothers on the coming month of Ramadan, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant all of us success and happiness in this month. And I would like just to make all of them just remind that during the lifetime of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the 2 years of the caliphate of Abu Bakr, and even for other 2 years during the caliphate of Umar ibn al-Khattab, the night prayers of Taraweeh were not made in congregation. So Muslims used to do it home. And I think it is grace or blessing in affliction. So if you become accustomed just to doing the salah in your home with your family, you have time to, you can say, to have more knowledge about the members of the family, to have the congregation inside the home, so it won't be limited to the month of Ramadan. You know that the sense of congregation and union in Islam is highly important. And this is something that Muslims should feel pride in. Why? Because even in modern times, we have now what is called group medicine. This is the group helping others to get recovery. This helps person to become mentally healthy, to have a good and well-mannered psychological life. So the sense of being a member in a group, the gathering itself is very important. And this fact is very clear in the Quran itself, as we know from, for example, we have the surah number 23rd, Surah Al-Mu'minun, the believers. It is not Surah Al-Mu'min, the believer. It is the believers. Of course, males and females, men and women together. And also from this sense, we used to have women inside the same mosque with Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the gathering in Islam knows no kind of discrimination. So let's first say that the congregation must be inside home before it goes to the mosque, And the fact that we are not accustomed to bring home together, this is one of the mistakes that this Ramadan we should inshallah overcome this mistake and make good corrections regarding our own relationship in the worship itself inside the house. This is number one. Number two, I think that each house of Muslims should now start to make small beneficial groups of worship. Like what? Like, for example, having half an hour for the studies of the Quran, like having half an hour for reciting dhikr together. Be careful about this, because if you go through the Quran, you won't find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying salli. Allah didn't say pray individually. No. Allah say aqimu salah, pray together. Atu zakah, give zakah together. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-sawm. O believers, fasting is prescribed for you together, that you may لعلكم تتقون, that you together become righteous. So the fact that we do small things together would help the ummah to be built and have the unity that all Muslims aspire to see during their lifetime. So the sense of congregation must be established at homes first. Number two, we must start have our schedule. We must have a plan for our coming Ramadan. And indeed, some Muslim imams now they are saying that this Ramadan may be the best. I do like to be that optimist and say it would be the best. Why? Because I feel that I lack the essence of mosque. I need this kind of spirituality, and I think a new kind of praying alone or individually or even at home would be a compensation for it. But I can say, or I dare say that if you build good habits inside our homes, we would be able to get the benefits of these good habits after Ramadan. And so we make some important corrections for our homes after Ramadan. So we can say that we can have good 11 months after this month of Ramadan. So we have better Shawwal, better Dhul Qa'dah, better Dhul Hijjah than our usual month is after it, inshallah. However, we should in this Ramadan start to make some social activities with the Muslim groups inside the same city, inside the mosque group itself, inside different groups worldwide, like the way we are doing now. I suggested that the imams should start to find each others and to make, you can say, layali, nights for iman, layali imaniya, nights for improving, nurturing our own faith, other layali for fatwa. This is other nights for giving fatawas or live fatawas for Muslim brothers and sisters. Other layalis, especially during the last 10 nights of Ramadan, other layalis for enhancing the Muslim sense of charity, the Muslim sense of giving, because month of Ramadan teaches us how to give. This is because we feel needy, we feel hungry, we feel how other peoples who are deprived of the blessings we usually have all days, how we feel the same kind of feeling they have in other days, or you can say in most of days. I think this month is a great opportunity for all Muslims to get the best of it, especially in the spirituality, in the new activities of grouping, new activities of coming together without, of course, without touching, without shaking hand, and without being physically together, unless it be inside the same house with the members of the house.
Jazakallah khair for this introduction. So, you mentioned something about each imam should make like a schedule, one night, for example, for fatwas, one night for, and encourage people to join virtually as we are doing right now
Yeah.
via Zoom or different means. Okay, so now, has there been a historic incident where similar situation that they were not able to be together physically?
This for me or brother Jalal? Okay. This is a very good question. Actually, you know that during past times, the science advancements didn't give people an exact reasons for the cause of the pandemic. So they usually understood that being together may be dangerous. And if you go back to the most famous Black Death that took place during the caliphate of the second caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, you will find that we have indeed two responses to this, you can say, a common death that was pandemic and killed more than 25,000 Muslims, including hundreds of Sahaba. The the first response came from those people who are inclined to the hereafter, like Mu'adh ibn Jabal, like Abu Ubaidah, and those two persons were the leaders in the nowadays Greater Syria, or what is known in our history as the Levant, Bilad al-Sham. The first two leaders, Abu Ubaidah and Mu'adh, as narrated by Imam Ahmad, Al-Hakim, and others, gave one response. Each one of them said, "This is a mercy from Allah, and I ask Allah to give me my share from this mercy." So they asked Allah to give them to become martyrs in this death. However, this was not the response of Umar ibn al-Khattab or the response of Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As, when he took the leadership, he started to give his sermon and he commanded people to go to the mountains just to become scattered and separated from one another. So they have better chance, better opportunity to escape death because they won't be infected by the pandemic. And they followed the instructions. Umar ibn al-Khattab gave us another example when he was on his way with hundreds of immigrants, muhajir and helpers, ansar around him. And when the news came to him that there is a pandemic in the greater Syria, Umar ibn al-Khattab started to make consultation, to counsel with them about the current case, whether they should continue their journey or come back to Medina. Most of them have different views, but Umar ibn al-Khattab then finally said, "Bring the leaders of Quraysh to me." And they said, "You shouldn't take the leaders of Muslims and go to the pandemic with them and make their life exposed to death." So he agreed with this opinion and he decided to come back and give commands to comply with this. After he took the decision and went back, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf was absent. So he came and he started to say, "You did what he sallallahu alayhi wasallam commanded us to do. I have a piece of knowledge regarding this issue." He sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Whenever you are in a place where the pandemic takes place, don't go out. And whenever you hear about any city in which the pandemic took place, don't enter this city." So Umar ibn al-Khattab praised Allah, Alhamdulillah, that he took the right decision and he survived along with other Muslims and he didn't entered into the greater Syria. When the news came to Umar ibn al-Khattab after that about the death of the leaders of Islam and about the procedure that Amr ibn al-As commanded, that all people should be separated from one another and they should leave the city and their homes and go to the countryside and to the mountains, Umar ibn al-Khattab approved what Amr ibn al-As said and didn't raise any kind of objections. And so we understand that what we are now taking as Muslims and even what is medically advised by all the medical authorities around the world is a prophetic statement, a prophetic command for all Muslims. This is number one. Number two, actually, we have in books of history that some days and in some times with the pandemic takes place in Egypt, in Syria, in Andalusia, this is Spain, and parts of Italy and Portugal, the Muslims used to leave mosques without prayers. Why? Because no one even dared to go to the congregation, and most of them were either sick or preoccupied by burying their own dead people. Because as you know, during these times, the pandemic was very dangerous, that most of cities lost one third, two-thirds of their population. So actually, we have some historic hints, some historical memoirs about the mosques, when the mosques were kept without prayers, when the congregation and Friday prayers were suspended. It was not indeed a procedure taken by the government or commanded by any rulers, but it was a response by people. And I dare say that it never happened that mosques were left without any prayers. Actually, there must, what we understand naturally by normal cases, that some few members of Muslim people used to go, but they may be one, two, three, one time, two times a day. But we lost the normal congregations, as we know, in the usual manner and in most of days in Islam. So the fact that the salah was suspended, it never happened. But the fact that Muslim mosques and Muslim congregation may be suspended under some circumstances for some days or weeks, this happened. But the fact that they suspended it for months, and we expect nowadays, we expect that at least until coming August, we want to be back to our mosques. So this never took place during our history. And the fact that it didn't take place is, you can say, dependent upon the scientific advancements. If they would know that this procedure is very important for their own health and for their own life, I think that most of jurists would take a decision that they must do it.
So, based on the example that you mentioned about Amr ibn al-As, when he told people to go up to the mountain and spread away from each other, that indicates that they would have to have prayer separately, not in congregation, to keep everybody safe. And in Islam, and you can, of course, you will confirm that,
Yeah,
Namdan,
this is
that
normally understood, of course.
yes, the preservation of life is the number one of the maxims of Sharia.
Yeah. But
Okay, good.
this very serious note, thank you for it, because during the last weeks we have a controversy about what is most important, the preservation of religion or the preservation of human lives. Actually, this question itself is a paradox. It is not a right question. Why? Because the fact that you preserve your life, you preserve religion.
Mm,
Why? Because now, if we say that all Muslims must go now for to congregations, and they shouldn't pay any kind of attention for their own health or lives just to keep congregation, what would be the outcome if we lose millions of Muslims, including imams, including scientists, including the doctors and physicians, including the professors of universities? What would happen? We would lose Islam itself. We would make Islam weak and weaker.
mhm,
So the fact that you make, you can say, this kind of paradox, this kind of unnatural conflict between keeping lives and keeping religion,
mhm.
Islam never ever say that you must sacrifice your religion just to keep your life. This is not a sacrifice of religion. Actually, this is a preservation of your religion. Because now we have a very important moral question. What happens if we have a doctor who is a kafir, a disbeliever, and usual person who is a Muslim, and we have only one artificial ventilator to give them in the hospital? What kind of care should be given to the Muslim or the disbeliever? Actually, according to the fiqh of Islam, we should give the care for the disbeliever who is not a Muslim, because his life would help other Muslims to live, not the life of the usual Muslim who is not a physician, who is not a scientist. This is
Yeah.
very clear for all people.
So the approach of Sharia in this case is to preserve the life of the non-Muslim doctor
Yes,
because he can save the lives of so many other people,
yes.
other Muslims. Excellent. Brother Galal, are there any questions so far?
Actually, this question is for me to Sheikh Mohammed. Doctor, it looks like there is no subject or topic in the fiqh books talks about the pandemic or the plague.
No, no,
other
no,
than the
no, no,
hadith.
no, no.
So should it be the time for our researchers, for our scholars to address this issue?
Actually, this piece of information is not that accurate. Why? Because we have, you can say, we have even hadith in Al-Bukhari about the chapters on how to deal with the case of ta'un, this pandemic. We have one book written, one volume, huge book, written by Imam Ibn Hajar. This Al-Ma'un fi ta'un. This is the help, the given help for the issue of ta'un. We have indeed so many other books written about the issues of prayers, about the case of pandemic and contagion. This is the infection itself. In the books of fiqh, in the books of history, and in the literature. We have so many books about this issue. So actually, we can write articles about the literature of pandemic, not about the details of pandemic. What we now, you can say, what we now should do is to revive our heritage, to revive our great literature, because during the usual times, especially during the last century, since the 1920, this is the last pandemic took place in the history of mankind. I speak about pandemic that took place worldwide, east and west, not in a specific area like, for example, malaria in Africa and other places. During the last century, we didn't give much attention to the literature, to the studies, especially in the Muslim world, to the literature studies and jurisprudence, the fiqh, and the history of pandemic. Now it is our own opportunity to revive this discipline, to give more attention, and to, you can say, to air our own information, our own literature to others, to give the benefits, especially regarding the etiquettes of pandemic, what we should do as Muslims first, and then as human beings during the times of this kind of hardship.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So, Brother Galal, please let me know when questions come in so we can take it one by one. So, Dr. Muhammad, now, as far as doing the prayers in congregation, you mentioned that in the first 2 years of Islam, after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the Taraweeh or the Qiyam prayers after Isha were not in congregation until Umar ibn al-Khattab himself like made it so. Can you tell us why did he do that, and like what authority, religious authority, could he have to do that? And is there a preferred way, whether there is a pandemic or not?
Okay, thank you for this question. I think this you can say these multi branches which question needs so much time. This number one. Let's say that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam recommends all Muslims to do as much as they can do of voluntary acts of worship, including salah, of course. And he himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of his own special duties was the night prayers. So when it comes to night prayers, he must, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he must do it. This is unlike me, unlike you, we can do it. We are just recommended to do it, but he must do it. And during the nights of Ramadan, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day started to recite Quran in the room of Aisha. You understand me now? So he was in a special closet inside his room with his wife. Some Muslims were in the mosque at this time. So they started to pray behind him. This happened one night. Next night, people told one another. So next night, we don't have tens of people. We have so much crowds, many people. So he sallallahu didn't come out to them. And he sallallahu didn't come out to them because of one good wisdom, which is, he sallallahu told them, I feared that this prayer, this is the Taraweeh prayer, this is the night, the early night prayers in Ramadan. I feared that this prayer may become obligatory upon you if you keep praying behind me. So he sallallahu didn't lead them in this prayer out of his mercy. The issue continued as so during the remaining life of Prophet, remaining years of the life of Prophet, and during the 2 years of Abu Bakr, and the further 2 years of Umar ibn al-Khattab. Until one night, Umar ibn al-Khattab were going through the streets of Medina just to see if anything is taking place which is not proper, is not right, is not this, like any good ruler should do. He just observes the audience or observe the population and see if they would need anything. And he would see one person, two friends, small groups. Those are praying in this corner, others praying in front of this house, other in this yard. He told those who are around him, what if we gather those people together, the individuals and the small congregations, small groups, all of them together? So Umar ibn al-Khattab told all people to come next night, and he appointed Ubay ibn Ka'b, one of the Hafiz of the Quran, to lead them in prayers. So Ubay did the same, and Umar started to observe the great assembly, great gathering of Muslims. And he said, Ni'matul bid'atu hadhihi. What a kind of good innovation. This is very important. Why? Now, some people, when you tell them that you can organize. Now, please put this word organize between two brackets. When you can organize in act of worship, if it is freely left by the Prophet ﷺ without a specific manner, like what? Like the recitation of the Quran. He ﷺ didn't say that we should, for example, go and make a small circle of the memorizers of the reciters of the Quran and do it every day after Asr, or do it on Friday night, or do it Saturday after Dhuhr. He never said this. But we can organize a circle, small session for the recitation of the Quran. The same goes true, for example, for the process of transmission of hadith during the early times of Islam, from the process of transmission of the laws of fiqh during the early time of Sahaba, including the circles of Abdullah ibn Umar, of Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in Kufa, in Mecca, and in Medina. So this kind of organization, the same goes true for the organization of charity. For example, we should have small organizations for identifying those who are mostly needed people in our community, those young people who are in need to support their project, their clinics, their small projects in industry, in agriculture, other places. This organization is not bid'ah, is not religious innovation. The same goes true for the act that Omar did. Now Omar did something that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't advise. Why? Because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't tell people, listen, this is very important. Listen to what coming. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't tell people, go and make congregation together because I won't lead you, because I fear lest this prayer should be obligatory. He sallam didn't say go and do the congregation. You understand? But he can say to them. But he sallam didn't say, but Omar did. So what Omar did is innovation. And anyone of those new sheikhs who are saying that this is illiteral bid'ah, not illegal bid'ah, they are giving something that is against the laws of Islam. Why? Because we have a rule in the science of Islamic legal theories that tells the following. When someone is speaking with any statement, we should give the interpretation of his statement according to his position. For example, if he's the prophet, we understand that what he says must be a part of Sharia. If he is a linguist like Al-Asma'i, like Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, like Al-Mubarrid, so we should give the interpretation upon the laws of linguistics. But what we can do if the one who is giving the interpretation is a mufassir, a commentator of the Quran, is a jurist, a scholar of fiqh. We should give the interpretation according to his own disciple of knowledge, according to the branch of knowledge. So what Umar said comes from two backgrounds. The number one being a Sahabi. So what he said has, I don't say that what he says has absolute authority in Islam, but what he said is a contextual evidence. So it has some kind of good background for a jurist to depend on. Number two, what he said came from his position as the caliph, a statesman. This is a politician. So what he said has nothing to do with linguistics. What he says must be part of the organization of the community and must be some of the knowledge that he perceived and understood from his long journey in the company of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So we understand that what he said is part of Sharia, not against it.
Alhamdulillah. To summarize this to people, now the Prophet ﷺ was afraid that if he led the Muslims in the Taraweeh prayers, they would think it became a fard. So he did not want to do that. So Muslims were praying separately the night prayers until a time the Prophet ﷺ passed away. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu became Khalifa for 2 years and then passed away. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu became Khalifa, and 2 years into his leadership, he instituted the congregational Taraweeh prayers in order not to let this good sunnah like dissipate and people stop doing it altogether. So now it is okay for the Muslims to do it either individually or in congregation.
Yeah.
Is
So
this
now you can, for example, lead your family in congregation, and you can, for example, organize the same kinds of worship with other than Salah. You can organize durus, this is lessons in Sharia. You can organize any other activities. All of these are permissible, and this is part of the recommended sunan.
no? Jazakallahu khairan. Okay, so considering the circumstances that we're in right now, so everyone should try as much as possible within their household to hold these prayers in congregation. Husband and wife and children, if they can pray together, that would be the best thing. Is this what you're recommending, Imam?
I think all of us know that during the month of Ramadan, Muslims, unfortunately, this is something which is very sad indeed. Muslims become accustomed more to making good food every day. Muslim sisters, especially, they spend so much time making much food that usually find its place in the garbage, unfortunately. Other bad habit is most of our sisters and brothers, especially in Arab region and other Muslim states, you find that they spend so much time on TVs, on their mobiles, and they spend this very precious time of Ramadan that they must spend in enhancing their own spirituality and changing their own habits and making the change in our Muslim civilization, because we lost our connection with the sources, with the main sources of how to rebuild our civilization. I think that the coming Ramadan should be a good outset, good beginning for Muslim generations, especially the young people. Now you have opportunity to sit with your children, to sit with the kids and the young people, and to gather them around you. They are already inside the house because of this pandemic. This is a great opportunity to connect them with the sources of Islam, with the morals of Islam, with the spirituality of Islam. And I think if we, the Imams, could make good organizations of giving good stories, good lessons, good you can say spiritual nourishment for our own brothers and sisters, this would be a great Ramadan, inshallah, and would prepare us for the coming Ramadans to have parallel between our worship in the mosque and our worship with our families inside the house.
This is actually a good thing because it is an opportunity. For example, if I commute to work I live in Staten Island and I go to Manhattan for work, it takes me at least an hour of commute. Now I'm staying from home, I'm working from home, so I can wake up later in the day, so I can actually make prayers at night. I can pray Fajr and can make halaqah of Quran. So I think there is more opportunity this year than previous years for those who, for lack of a better term, were busier in previous Ramadans. Brother Galal, you have a question?
I don't listen him.
You're still muted, Brother Galal. Okay.
I do have a question. Some people allowed Muslims to make iftar in Ramadan, not to fast, in the fear of the infection of corona. So what is the your stand of this?
The fact that a sheikh or any scholar or a jurist, between brackets, because jurist is something great, and it is not that easy term or easy title to give it to anyone. If I say to people now, if any one of you is sick, he can do iftar, I'm the most ignorant ever. This kind of fatwa should be given personally. Personally. This is on personal basis. For example, Brother Hisham would come to me and say, I have such and such history of sickness with my doctors. And the doctors told me during the history and through medical reports from trustworthy doctors who are well known for their own objectivity, for their own good knowledge, that I must, listen to this, I must break fast, because if I keep fasting, I may expose my life to destruction, my sickness may become worse, or I may be not able to complete the month of Ramadan in the other acts of worship, or I may feel, for example, dead. In the case that I fear seriously for my health, fear death, fear worse side effects, I can allow you to make iftar, and then if you can make the missed days after Ramadan, you should now make them after Ramadan. But if you are so old, if you are so sick, you can just feed one miskin, one person for each day you miss Ramadan. But it is not proper for any jurist to say anyone who is sick can do iftar. This is absolutely wrong. Anyone who is sick must consult his doctors and bring the history of his sickness and see what kind of side effects, what is the expected effects on his own health, whether his life is exposed to hardship or not, to the destruction or not. He may suffer worse diseases or not. But for example, if you find it hard for you, tough for you to continue the fasting, you say, okay, I don't like fasting, and I have, for example, diabetes, I have this and that, so I break. No, you cannot just do it clumsily without any procedure first from your doctors. That's why I say and give fatwa that if you can keep fasting and you can take, for example, some medication through injection, you should do it through injection, even if this is nutrition injection. You can do it, and I give fatwas that nutrition injection is not breaking the fasting of any person so long as he is not eating or drinking through the usual opening through mouth. So this case, we try to make a parallel, make some kind of balance between the spiritual of fasting and keep the honor and dignity of fasting. We shouldn't break the dignity of fasting. This is very important. We shouldn't give fatwa for people to just go take it easy and they break fasting, as we see from some sheikhs. They take it easy and give people the permission and concession without any good grounds for giving this fatwa. So the fact that this fatwa is not right, and we shouldn't depend upon it. And this kind of giving fatwas clumsily goes against Sharia itself, and we shouldn't depend upon the fatwa of anyone if we feel that he is not giving serious investigation to the evidence of Sharia.
So, Dr. Muhammad, I want to follow up on that question because I think the fear of coronavirus now is making people thinking that I should be well nutrition, like having good nutrition, well hydrated, and while fasting, especially that now fasting will be for about 16, 17 hours in the United States. So that prevents your body from receiving nutrition. But I understand what you're saying that the fatwa should be individually based in this case and not a general fatwa whoever is sick, because sickness could be, for example, someone has a cold who can manage to fast.
Yeah.
Continue fasting the day is different from someone who is terminally ill, for example, God forbid, cancer or some other bad sickness, that they have to be on certain medication.
Yeah.
And you mentioned and you gave this fatwa. Now I want to make sure that is understood. If there is an alternative medicine through injection, even if that injection or the medicine is considered nutritious, it is through injection than taking pills through the mouth, which is now breaking the fast through the mouth.
Yeah.
Taking it as an injection does not break the fast, and that's a fatwa from you. Is that?
Yeah. Actually, we have some different views about this fatwa, but I find it proper to give this fatwa. Why? Because the Sharia is very clear upon two issues. Number one, you shouldn't break your fast through the usual physical means. This is eating something, drinking something, or having sexual intimacy. These are three physical things, you know. Now, you shouldn't break your fast by any spiritual acts. This is, I think, all of us knows that you may fast all the day and finally you have no reward, no ajr. This is, for example, if you are a permanent sinner, you are backbiting, you are gossiping, you are doing wrong acts of misdeeds, sins, and this and that. But what I now want to refer to is when you have injection, some people say you should now be regarded as breaking the fast because you take something that support you and it keeps you good all the day, healthy, and you have all the energy and you don't need for food. But what they said is not right. Why? Because simply, I can, for example, eat something which is very nutritious before Fajr. I can wash my body with water during the hot days. I can keep all nights praying and watchful and only sleep at 8 o'clock in the morning. So when I finish my 8 hours of sleeping, it is almost after Asr. So we have so many procedures, and no one said that if I sleep during the day, my fasting is broken. No one said that if I take very nutritious food before Fajr in my suhoor, and I will keep energies all the day, have enough energy, enough powers. No one said that my fasting is broken. So I say the same. You can do it because this is not usual opening for food. And what is most important, it gives you no kind of pleasure. When you have injection, you have no taste, no smell, no joy at all. It is indeed painful. It is something which has pains. So I give this fatwa depending upon this fact that we may do so many things that keep our powers, keep our energy during the daytime. However, the fasting is still valid. Why not the injection?
Jazakallah khair, Brother Galal.
Just like to follow on this too. The whole idea of this came from somebody said it is a good precautions that you keep your mouth moisture, keep yourself hydrated. If you do that, you will not be infected with corona. That's why some people give that fatwa. So is still be the case?
Nursing, rinsing water inside the mouth, or gargling all the day, it does not break your fast. So you can rinse your water, you rinse your mouth, you can wash your body, you can take the hygienic procedure, wash your hand, wash your face, everything you can do. So and even you can do it during the usual days. For example, if for example you feel that the smell of your mouth is not that good, it turns bad, you can rinse water just to refresh your mouth and change the smell. It is true that some of the Shafi'i jurists said we shouldn't change the smell, the bad smell, especially at the end of the day, because they depended on the hadith, the bad smell coming out from the mouth of a fasting person is higher or better in the sight of Allah than the smell of musk. However, other jurists didn't see anything wrong, didn't see anything bad with this kind of changing the bad smell in your mouth. So let's say that you can just do all of these procedures during the fasting days. You can put some water inside your mouth and you can rinse them. You can wash your face. You can wash your hands. You can take several times of washing your bodies. And all of these procedures do not break your fast until you have good hygienic habits. And at the same time, you are still fasting and you have the reward of fasting. Something last to say, the fact that you keep the throat wet, it does not have medical or can scientific certain rules that if you keep this part of the throat wet, that you want to get infected. This something you can say this precautious. This something that some people saying as you can say good habit. However, we have now almost 2 million of those infected with coronavirus. Do you think that those people of different grounds, most of them usually have drinks all the day? They have the different drinks. They have different times of washing their face and they rinse in their mouth. However, they got infected. We understand this. So finally, I think that we should take our precautions procedures, but we shouldn't just make everything dependent upon the sacrifice of our acts of worship. We shouldn't sacrifice our acts of worship unless we are certain that there is most likely effect, which is bad effect, that may take place because of what we do. So until this moment in which we are now talking together, there is no scientific, there is no scientific alarming, scientific principle that tells you you must keep taking drinks all the day, and if you do it, you will be on the safe side. Nothing tells it about this.
It's not certain for sure, but it's helpful. But you mentioned either rinse your mouth or even gargle throughout the day on every hour if you want.
But you can do it.
As long as you don't swallow it, then you should be fine. And that will keep the throat moist, which
Yeah.
is the same thing basically.
However, we said that you can do these acts during fasting. You can keep your throat moist. You can keep gargling, and even you can rinse your mouth several times, and you can even sniff water inside your nose and give them out again, take them out again. All of these are allowed, especially we do them normally in all the cases of wudu, for Fajr, for Dhuhr, for Asr, for Maghrib.
No. Jazakumullah khair. Are there any other questions, Brother Gala?
I do have one.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
fatwa came yesterday from one of the respected scholars that we can follow the prayer virtually on, say, Zoom or one of these social media. What is your stand on this?
Actually, you try to make it this one and last show together, because you just tell everything. I think we have some organized activities, but I will give a short answer about this. I support this fatwa for one reason. This fatwa, or not this fatwa of Sheikh Al-Bar, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save him and bless him. This fatwa, or this, you can say, this question is based upon one rule, which is, what is the meaning of ittisal? This is the connection inside the lines of prayers. What is the meaning of ittisal? And when we go to the details of the jurists, we will find the common examples. I will just give some few examples, because inshallah, in the next show, inshallah, we'll give more details about this and more modern issues, inshallah. Number one, according to the Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and others, we can pray in the houses and in the yards and in the, you can say, premises which is connected to the mosque, and even in the houses of the neighbors of the mosque, and upon the roofs of the houses neighboring the house, so long as we can observe the movement of the imam and follow him, or we can see the movements of the followers of the imam, or even the last lines of the followers of the imams. This is ma'mumin. Even if you see the last line and you can follow them, and even if you can hear the one who is reporting about the imam, he is making loud voice, Allahu Akbar, in the end of the lines. So other lines in the background, in the rear parts of the yards, would follow the imams. All of these examples are permissible. Not only this. According to Imam Malik, we can pray with roads between the followers of the imams. So we can have roads between us, the ways, so long as we can see them without interruption. Not only this, we can follow the imam when we are in the sea in different ships. It is true that Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said we should do it. This is Hanabila, this is the Hanbali jurists. We can do it in ships in the sea when the ships are connected together. But Imam Malik didn't regard the actual physical connection when they are tied together. Imam Malik regarded the fact that if we can see each other through different ships, see, in the different ships we have only one imam. So the imam, for example, in the first ship, but other ships behind him, we have now one ship may take hundreds of meters. So we have different ships in the sea, and they are disconnected. They are not tied, according to Imam Malik. And their prayers and their congregation, it is still valid. So now, what you understand? The act of ittisal depends upon three things. Number one, sight, you see. Number two, hearing. Number three, the place. Now the question is, actually, we are in agreement that we see each other through the mobiles, laptops, TVs, or others, and we listen to the imam. What about the place? That's why I say that we can follow the imam. We can follow the imam through the laptops, through the Facebook, through this, if the imam is in the location, is very close to us. This is my own reservation regarding this fatwa. I'm not saying that you can follow, you are in Staten Island. I'm not saying that you can follow the imam in Manhattan. I don't allow this. Don't allow this. Why? Because I would like to have a kind of spiritual connection which is very close to the physical connection, and you can regard it if you just bear in mind the position of the imam who is very close to your house, and he shares at the same time the same adhan, and you are almost physically and spiritually, just imagine yourself behind him. So you can just follow the imam in the small city, small township, small location, or you can say you should follow the closest mosque to you. Now you can say, but the Imam, why you are making this, you can say, groundless difference between the far Imam and the close Imam. No, it is not groundless. Why? Because first, we must share the adhan, the iqamah, and the time of adhan and iqamah. This is number one. Number two, if you go to the mosque of Mecca, sacred mosque, Al-Haram, or the mosque in Medina, you are indeed making congregations in hundreds of thousands of meters. You see Muslims, for example, during the season of Hajj in Mecca, on the day of Hajj in Mecca, there are almost 3 or 4 millions. You are now speaking about more than, now if we take things by the usual measurement of the meters, you are almost in need of more than 2 million meters. You are speak about more than 2 miles. So you are speak about almost 3 kilometers of people making congregation together. And we understand by nature that the lines of prayers cannot, it is impossible to keep the connection, but they still see each other and listen to the microphones in which the voice of the imams comes to them. So I see that if, for example, we are in Muslim state, we can make in the street, we can take, for example, monitors in the streets, and we can make small congregation in the yards of our house, and we still see each other. We are, for example, praying in the front of my house. We pray together, are 4 members of the house, of the family. And you are making the same 4 members inside your house. And we see in the monitors the imam. And the others see in the monitor the imam. And we see the others who are in front of us. And they see those who are in front of them until we reach the mosque. This is exactly what happens in Mecca and Medina, what happens in Al-Azhar, what happens in Morocco, in the greater mosque of Muhammad Sadis, another great mosque in Muslim communities and Muslim states. Now, the missing point is we don't have this facility in Western communities. And unfortunately, the Muslim governments and Muslim authorities, ministries of Awqaf, didn't organize anything for having anything like this. And I think this is something which we should blame. We should put blame on them for it. Now comes to us. Now we can say that we have alternatives through our Facebook, mobile, not TVs, our small activities with our mosque, local mosque. We can follow the imam. And for example, around each mosque here, you have tens or hundreds of Muslim houses. Those hundreds of Muslim houses, most of them see the mosque itself. So if we give some organization, some people, 3 people, 4 people may make congregation in front of the mosque. And others who are 100 meters would see them. Others see those who are in front of this house. Others will see them. So virtually and physically, this is something which is possible and permissible. And we should actually do it. And if we make some good organization, it would help us, especially during the coming months, because we expect that we won't have certain vaccine for this pandemic until coming June in 2021. This is almost 1 year without congregations, without Friday prayers, and this is something which is painful indeed to our souls and to our feeling. So I support this fatwa, and I think that we as imams worldwide, not only in New York, not only in America, Muslim imams in Muslim communities worldwide, from China to Alaska and to Canada and to Australia, everywhere should make good organization, how to organize the congregation during the coming month. And myself, I feel it is very painful. I'm not feel satisfied that we just say pray home without taking any good steps to help our brothers and sisters make a small congregation, even if we keep it as family congregation in our house or in front of our house or in some corners in the to the roads or gardens and this like that, without violating the laws of the authorities. So we shouldn't be, for example, 20 persons inside a small garden, or 20 persons inside our houses, because this would be very dangerous to all of us.
I want to summarize before I get back to Brother Galal. I know you have a question or a follow up. Now, the fatwa that we are speaking about is Dr. Muhammad Al Bar in Brooklyn. It was a three-part fatwa. The end result of the fatwa is he allowed Muslims to pray via watching an imam over TV and following that imam. The Dr. Muhammad, you agree with that fatwa, except that you have a condition that that imam that you follow should be within your locality.
Yes.
For example, the closest mosque to you. Now, if there is a lack of this ability at a local mosque, could you, for example, let's say someone in the state of New York, or pray within the United States, an imam, as long as you have the same time of the prayer, meaning the adhan is very close within a few minutes, the iqama is the same, and it's like a distance that you can actually travel to that mosque. So, for example, I want to push back. You said Manhattan versus Staten Island versus Brooklyn. Is it a problem? Let's say there are no imams, no mosques in Staten Island that will broadcast this prayers. Can we follow an imam from Brooklyn or Manhattan who is doing a live stream of the prayers, because the adhan time is very close? Even it could be the same adhan time, and it's a drivable distance. But I don't think it's permissible, or it doesn't make any sense to follow an imam you're praying in New York to follow an imam in California. That's a completely different prayer time. Or an imam in London or in Mecca, because that's a completely different time. Would you think it is possible to follow an imam within, like, if the prayer times is very close?
As you know, you have just said that you are, for example, are living in Staten Island, and suppose that there is no mosque in Staten Island. What you said is something which is different. We have a legal maxim which tells الضرورات تبيح المحظورات, which is usually translated as necessity. Necessity has its own, or dictates its own laws. And at times of hardship, every hardship begets easiness. So this is one of the greatest aspects of our Sharia, that hardship begets easiness for people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, إن مع العسر يسرا فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that ما يريد الله ليجعل عليكم من حرج. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not to put in a kind of hardship upon you. With each state of hardship, there must be two states of easiness. So what you said allows you to pray behind any closed locality. This is right. But what I mean is, because we are given, you can say, a fatwa in case of urgency, because we have unprecedented event. We never left our mosques for 2 months, 3, 4, 1 year. This is something which all Muslims, especially the scholars of Islam, they should feel painful for it. They shouldn't just take it easy. What would happen that if we have another mutation in the creation or in the reproduction of this virus, and by coming September or by coming October, we have more dangerous virus, and we keep inside this circle for 1 more year, for 1, 2 years, what would happen? We stop Friday prayers, we stop congregation, while we know that if we keep masks, have gloves, have our small carpet for prayers, and we go and leave ourselves separated, make ourselves disconnected in the same line. I issued a fatwa about this on YouTube, and I wrote it on my Facebook page and gave different evidence for the permissibility to be in the same line and leave space between you and the other guy in the same line. So we have some good procedures that help us, inshallah, to make our congregation safely. So I think that we should start to organize, at least not in the United States, but in other states. Why? Because in the United States we have now almost 700,000 of those infected. So the pandemic is very dangerous here. And the numbers of Muslims is very small. This is number two. Number three, the population who are not Muslims want, for example, welcome that we make small congregations in front of the houses beside the mosque. For example, every mosque has at least 30 or 40 houses. We can use the small gardens, and in front of each garden we have 4 persons, for example, and we see each other. So we have some difficulties in the organization of these prayers in the United States, in Canada, in for example, in Australia, in non-Muslim states generally. But we can do the same in Egypt. We can do the same in Saudi Arabia. We can do the same in Algeria. We can do the same in Turkey. We can do the same in Iraq. So we should start to organize and give, you can say, creative solutions. We shouldn't take it easy. What happens nowadays in Muslim states is they are in trains together, they are in underground trains together, they are in supermarket together, they are in cafe together, they are going to markets together, they are in crowds in front of banks together, but they stop making prayers inside the mosques. What happened is something which is shameful indeed. We should start to rethink about what we must do just to keep our faith in the right manner. So before I end, I say that we shouldn't violate the laws in any state, whether in the Western or Eastern communities, whether in Muslim state or non-Muslim state. We shouldn't violate anything, but we should start to highlight the status quo for Muslim leaders, and they should start to work upon finding good solutions. And one of these solutions is we can lead the prayers in the mosque with the least number acceptable. This is either 3 or 12, and they should be separated. And sometimes we have, alhamdulillah, several floor mosques. We have, for example, 3, 4-story mosques. So in these big mosques, we have, for example, 20 persons inside each floor. So 5 floors, we have 100. And we can have 100 in each night. So if the community is 300, 400, each 100 can go one night. You understand what I mean? So we are not closing the mosque completely, especially in Muslim states, but we can find good solutions. That's why I supported this fatwa, and I keep my reservation that we should be close to the closest mosque, because we shouldn't be just that sit apart from the local mosque and we, for example, follow any sheikh. Otherwise, for example, you should bring a sheikh, for example, Ifasi or Muokli from the last year, and you should pray. You can pray behind him. This is not
It
right.
has to be live. So, bottom line, you're following an imam live. It's not recorded, and you're following an imam within your locality. The problem that we have now is that the authorities forbade the gatherings inside houses of worship at least until May 15 in New York City, in New York State, and it's likely to be extended throughout this month of Ramadan. So my focus right now is this month of Ramadan, and based on what you said, then the Muslims should be able to follow a prayer that is happening live at that same time from a local mosque near that Muslim's house.
Yes.
Bilal, I want to get back to you.
Yeah, just one more question on this.
Yes.
Should the imam be in congregation himself,
Yes.
or can be a single, or should be? Is it allowed to be a single and he leads others?
I said that the congregation must be at least 3, or even according to some opinion 2. 1 plus the imam, 2 plus the imam. So I think this is not a great number. We can do it in any place. The imam is now in the mosque, 2 persons with him, so they are 3. This is according to the Hanafi scholars, and they can be 12 according to the Maliki. According to the Hanbali and the Shafi'i, they can be either 40 or 50, but I don't prefer to say that we should be 40 or 50. Simply, the Prophet ﷺ led the Friday prayer when the people left him, as Surah Al-Jum'ah told us in the Quran, and the people who still continued prayers with him after others left were only 12 persons. So we can be 3 or 12, and this is a congregation, and after that, others would follow the same Imam. And because we are in a state of urgent necessity, I think this is should be permissible, and at least it gives you some sense of following the Imam that usually you follow him during the Taraweeh. So I don't allow, because I give you should just understand my stand. We are given some fatwa which is exceptional. So we shouldn't give more concession. We shouldn't give more permissions without urgent necessity. When we give necessity some respect in Sharia, they say, وَالضَّرُورَةُ تُقَدَّرُ بِقَدْرِهَا. The case of urgent necessity should be given an exact, you can say, treatment, an exact respect without extreme concession. We shouldn't say, you can, for example, because, for example, there is a great Imam in Arkansas, you can just follow him. There is a good, beautiful voice of Imam who is in Pennsylvania, who is in New York City, while you are, for example, in Buffalo. This is not right. We are giving a concession for a person who are in a state of urgency, so we shouldn't take it beyond the limits. Why? Because when he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, allowed us to wipe over the socks, he gave it 1 day for the person who is resident and 3 days for the traveler. But he didn't say you can do the same with face. He gave it for socks only. So we try to give balanced opinions about this issue. That's why, although, wallahi, I wrote this fatwa and I still have it, I can send you, about the issue of ittisal. I investigated all the opinions of the 5 Sunni schools, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, and Zahiri. And I didn't find enough courage in myself. I didn't find enough courage to post it on Facebook or to even make YouTube about it. Why? Because also you should understand our stand as followers of those great Imams. We didn't find it good in ourselves to violate what they said, even if we depend upon the examples that they allowed during the traditional cases or the traditional times. Because now I fear that if I give fatwa, millions of Muslim and Muslimah may misunderstand and think that we can just follow the Imams on TVs, on Facebook, and other things during usual times. This is not what we say. Because even the state of the case of ships in the sea, this is a case of urgency because they are in the sea. The case of great population and having to make lines of prayers with ways or roads between you, this is a case of necessities also. You understand me? So we try to give balanced fatwa without violating the limits of giving fatwa or making people taking it easy to just to follow anyone. Otherwise, many Muslims would just go and take a fasi and say Allahu Akbar behind him.
Yes. Just one more question on this.
Yeah.
A brother is asking, should the imam must be in the mosque or he can lead within congregation at home?
For me, I think that symbolically speaking, he must be in the mosque. Symbolically speaking, why? Because why we do the congregation? Just to keep the sense of the mosque. If you don't see the mosque, what's the benefit? You can do it with your family alone, it's okay. You can make small congregation, 5 persons, and you can do it. It is true that the reward for this congregation is not as much as the congregation in the mosque, because the more congregation, the more members you have, the more rewarded your prayer would be. However, now we say that the imam must be in the mosque, and we can take some permission or make some organizations with the authorities that would have small numbers, three numbers. And you know that we have big mosques, alhamdulillah. The smallest mosque ever in any Muslim community takes at least 200 members. So if we are three inside the mosque, this inshallah would be enough for the congregation. And as I said, if we can take some permission and they allow us to make smaller numbers, for example, in each floor we have 10 persons, 15 persons, and they are standing separately from one another, it would be better and better, inshallah. So we should do the best we can. And finally, if we cannot do any kind of congregation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't put any kind of hardship upon us, and we should, inshallah, make prayers inside our house. And this is, I think, for example, if the house of my brother Jalal and the house of my brother Hisham, they're close together, they can go to the garden and they can make two congregation with one imam. For example, if the brother Hisham is closer to the destination of Qibla, he should be the imam and he stand in front of the two lines, and you stand in one line with your family and Hisham in one line with his family. However, women should be in one independent line and men in one independent line. So men should be in the front line and women should be behind them, inshallah.
So even at the mosque, let's assume that we agree with the authorities to allow each mosque in this Ramadan to have the congregations of the imam and two others with the imam, and then broadcast this to the nearest houses who wants to follow. Whether it's 3 or 12 or whatever number that the authorities would allow inside the mosque, your fatwa, Dr. Muhammad, is that it is permissible that they be separate by 6 feet from each other.
Yeah.
They have to stand shoulder to shoulder based on the current circumstances.
Yes, this is permissible. And we have even some, you can say, clear statement in the Shafi'i school that they allowed you to stand and the two lines won't be disconnected if there is a space of 3 dhira. This is almost 1 meter and 89 centimeters. This is almost 2 meters. This is 6 feet. So this is a clear fatwa. This is traditional fatwa. And what is most important is, as I told you, the congregation won't be disconnected if they are in two ships. And we understand that if we are in two ships, we have meters between us. The congregation won't be disconnected if there is a way or road between this line and the other line. So, for example, the smallest road is 4 meters, 6, 10, 11, 15 meters. However, the congregation is still valid. So all of this evidence, beside other evidence I mentioned, for example, the prayers of the one who is standing by himself behind the lines of the followers of the Imam, his salah is valid. According to Hanafi, Maliki, and Shafi'i, only the Hanbali is exceptional, and their view is very weak because the Hanbali themselves allow women to stand alone in one line. You know, understand me? So if they allow women to stand alone in one line and her prayer is valid, they should, by analogy, allows the man to do the same and his salah would be valid. We have indeed so many proofs and arguments in support of this permissibility of the separation between the persons in the same line, and this is a very good solution. I hope that Muslim authorities in our countries, in Arab region, Muslim states should adopt it, and I have, alhamdulillah, good news that in Pakistan they allowed it today. They have, inshallah, their mosques open this week, and they should depend upon this fatwa and should have separated followers in the same line. The same goes true for Indonesia, and I think the same would be in Malaysia and other Muslim states, inshallah.
Brother Galal?
Yeah, I do have a question away from that topic. We have doctors and nurses, men and women, working right now at the hospitals because of the coronavirus cases. They wearing masks, heavy masks covering on their face, and that makes it difficult for them to breathe. So are they allowed to break their fast? Are they allowed to not to fast? how far would you take it?
The question is, because our health care workers suffering some difficulties in the breathing. Now, I didn't understand what is the connection, what is the relationship between food and breathing.
They become tired, become really tired. Maybe they're in need of some water, relaxing. It's a very stressful condition to work under.
So now, if there is any alternative not to break the fast, they should adopt this alternative. For example, they can have their shift after Maghrib. This is one. This is
They
one
have
solution.
they have no control of that.
I know. I understand this. I say that if there is a very serious danger to their life, to their health, even if there is any serious danger to their being sick, they can break their fast. However, let's say that our sisters and brothers who are healthcare workers, they are working in a very, very dangerous area. You understand me? However, morally speaking, not Sharia based speaking, morally speaking, no right Muslim should say to them, you should go home just to relieve yourself the danger of being infected. Rather, we last week, if you are following us, we make alhamdulillah short video honoring doctors and nursing staff, thanking them so much for every sacrifice they do for us. They are truly angels, and they are the saviors of our lives these days indeed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless each one of them. So we say that they are exposing their life to dangers and to sickness, and they're working in a very tough environment. So now they are naturally in this tough environment. If they find it is important for their own life to break the fast, otherwise they won't be able to do the work. Now listen to this. If breaking the fast would be very important for their doing their work, they can break the fast. Otherwise, they mustn't do it. Why? Because now we don't care for their own lives only. Actually, we give more care for the lives of millions of people who are now sick and they are in need of their care. So long as their life is very important for millions of people, we should now give priority for their lives and give them permission to break the fast if their life and their work depend upon this breaking of fast. Otherwise, they shouldn't do it.
Dr. Muhammad, a follow up on this. Some of the categories of people who are not, who have a license not to fast are the pregnant women, nursing women, the baker standing in front of a hot oven. Those can make it up later, or if they are unable to, they can pay feed a poor person one per the day that they missed. Would you say that doctors and nurses and medical field who are dealing in this particular case right now with the pandemic response would fall under this category during the pandemic, during this Ramadan?
First, I don't agree with the fatwa that any pregnant woman should break the fast, any nursing woman should break the fast, or any baker should break the fast. This is not right. As we said regarding the case of any sick person, we should depend upon the medical reports from reliable doctors, and they should determine what is the good procedure which is necessary for the case in question. So now, if a pregnant woman is good, healthy, and doctor said there is no dangers, there is no fears whatever for her or her baby, it is okay, she must fast. But if the doctors would say otherwise, okay, she is permissible to break the fast. In the case of bakers, we don't have equal case indeed, Because as we have just told, bakers can work at night. They can work after sunset until early morning, until it is 9 o'clock in the morning, and they can sleep after that. So we shouldn't give fatwa for anyone just to become, to give them compatible for their own work. For example, if some person now comes to me and say, I usually drive cars from early in the morning until sunset, and this is the normal time, the normal working hours for me in my company. And because I feel tired, I must break the fast. He has no permission to break the fast. He can take a leave during this month. We shouldn't just take it easy. Anyone who is in need of removing accidental hardship, he can can just ignore the obligation of fasting. This is not right. We say that if you, for example, brother, if you have, alhamdulillah, good saving in your account in the bank, and you can take a leave this month from the company, and you can break, you can fast instead of breaking the fast, you must do it. You must do it. No one can say otherwise. We should deal seriously with the obligation of Sharia. So now, with regard to the nurses, with regard to the doctors, any one of them, no one of them is exceptional. Any one of them whose life is exposed to danger, any one of them whose work depends upon breaking the fast, we say that he can do it, he can break the fast. Why? Because now we cannot say you can go and take a leave, because no one else can do his work. And we have millions of patients, we have millions and thousands of those infected. So we need them. So we have two factors, two elements. Number one, the life of the person in question. Number two, the lives of those infected. That's why we gave exceptional fatwa for nursing staff and for doctors. If you would feel so tired, unable to continue your work, you can break the fast. Why? Because we understand now that the lives of hundreds and thousands of people depend upon your life. This is very clear, I think.
Jazakallah khair. This makes perfect sense now. Like the number one lesson here is the fatwa is case by case. It's not
personal.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. This makes it, alhamdulillah. We've been now speaking for about an hour and a half. I think this is a good chunk, and looking forward to hosting you again, Imam. Inshallah, I'm going to try to do this with yourself and other Imams Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays during
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So I look forward to hosting you again. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakum.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.